Man, I just love becoming a fan of healthy video game franchises that have a bright future and many more installments ahead of them. Completely unrelated, I recently got into Star Fox. For years people told me that Star Fox 64 is a masterpiece, and I gotta say, they didn't lie. The goofy but endearing characters, the frantic space battles, the simple but compelling storyline, all with a fantastic soundtrack, creates one of the best experiences you can play on the Nintendo 64 or 3DS. And then there's Star Fox Zero. It has chicken robots? It's no secret this game failed. Zero is still extremely divisive among fans, and commercially it was a massive bomb for Nintendo while they were already on life support because of the Wii U. People often attribute this to the motion controls, but after having replayed it, there's actually quite a lot more to it, and it even does some aspects really well. Which got me thinking, what if we could bring this game back from the dead? What if Star Fox Zero got one more chance? I mean, hell, it's more likely than getting a whole new Star Fox game, so we might as well fantasize. What if we could fix Star Fox Zero for the Nintendo Switch? Now, just a quick disclaimer before we dive in. With fixing, I only mean adjusting it to be more to my liking. This stuff is subjective, and if you already enjoyed the topic of today's video, genuinely more power to you. Now, on with the show. 1, 2, 3... Now, you might be thinking, Mark, you think this game has redeeming qualities, but it's garbage. I'm going to kill you with hammers. Or alternatively, Mark, you think this game was so bad that it needs fixing, but it's great. I'm going to kill you with hammers. To which I only have one thing to say. Why not just use a gun? I mean, if you're going to kill someone, why not just... why am I telling you this? We're getting off topic! Yes, it may be hard to tell where I land on this do I find Star Fox Zero bad scale, because I both like and hate things about it. So let me clear the air once and for all. This was the first game I ever sold, and I got it for free as a birthday gift. I think that tells you enough. This game burned me so bad that I never touched another Star Fox game for years. It was only this year that I thought I'd give Star Fox 3D a shot, and boy howdy did it kickstart a Star Fox hyperfixation for me. Unfortunately, the rest of the series is a bit all over the place. But so what's the deal with Zero? It looks like Star Fox 64, remarkably similar actually. What went wrong? Well, to paint a picture for you, in terms of what we can salvage, there's maybe like a couple levels or so that are actually fun if you play them not like how the designers intended. Yikes. Now, in case you're not familiar with Star Fox core gameplay, you basically fly in an unreal segment, shooting down everything in your path, and you fight some bosses in a free-flying arena. Star Fox Zero has 5 of those levels. So, what's the rest, you may ask? Gimmicky garbage. But, believe it or not, there is still plenty to love here. Now let's go through everything, starting with the aesthetics and controls, then moving on to the individual levels. Now, as far as graphics go, we're about to start off on a high note here, folks, because this game looks pretty good. Everyone was a bit worried when the game was first revealed. The character render we got looked kinda gross, the visuals were very unpolished, but later trailers looked a lot more promising, and they actually managed to fix things up before release. Like many Wii U games, the game suffers from that weird shimmering effect. It is in desperate need of a higher resolution and some anti-aliasing, and I presume the Switch would be more than powerful enough to pull that off. Character designs are also pretty stellar. I actually think this is the best the main cast has ever looked. The only issue I have is that the game can look washed out and inconsistent at times, like they're applying some kind of color filter or something. I mean, look at this. Sometimes space looks pitch black, you know, as it should because it's friggin' space, and sometimes it's kinda grayish, very weird and gross looking, like the contrast is all messed up. It's probably fixable, and I also wouldn't mind some more detail and fun lighting effects in some areas, but I would say this is not a huge priority for a Switch port. The frame rate is pretty solid as well, so yeah, good stuff all around. As for the audio, it's actually pretty fantastic. The voice actors are doing a commendable job. The only part that sounds awkward is the intro, because it kinda sounds like Fox's voice actor was given no direction at all.
He delivered the news that Andross had amassed a terrifyingly huge army and intended to conquer the entire Lylat system. And so began the Lylat Wars.
As for the soundtrack, yeah, this one goes hard. I don't think there will be any changes needed, but I would love to hear some new remixes of past level themes. That could be cool to connect it to other games in the series as well. Speaking of aesthetics and stuff, just as a side note, I never quite liked the game's cover art all that much, so I made my own. I created a slick new logo for it as well, with some effects and whatnot, so I think this would stand out pretty nicely on a store shelf. What do you think of this one? But yeah, so much for looks and sounds. How about the gameplay? Well, here's where it gets a little tricky. I'm gonna separate these per vehicle. You got the R-Wing, the Landmaster, and the Walker, and you'll be spending most of your time in the R-Wing, so let's address that one first. There's just so much that went wrong here. The elephant in the room is the motion controls, and in theory, they would give you more precision where you fire. My question is though, did anyone need this? Sure, when I'm close to an enemy, I can better aim at their weak spots, but aiming in Star Fox 64 was already very accurate. I don't feel like this adds anything of value. Shooting independently from where your ship is moving only adds an extra factor to think about while you play. It used to be very intuitive. You just aim where you move and you shoot where you aim, so done, that's it. It even creates a risk-reward situation where aiming at something will nudge you slightly in that direction, so you may have to dodge out of the way to avoid incoming fire right after. It's pretty dang good. And most importantly, you can see where you are! With Star Fox Zero, I have no clue what the fuck's going on. It's not just sensory overstimulation to have two screens for something as simple as aiming. It actively makes the game harder to play. Oh, you're looking at the big screen? Well, now it's harder to aim at targets. Better try the other one. Oh, you're looking at the small screen? Well, you can aim better, but you can't see where you're flying. Well, better switch. And this cycle continues until you take the disc and fling it out your gosh dang window. It is abysmal game design. Now, you may try playing it with just the big screen, and it kinda works. I mean, it sure is a lot more fun, if it weren't for the fact that they deliberately force you to use both screens. If you're not using motion controls, every slight movement of your hand will still move the reticle, thus messing up your aim. And there are enemies that can only be taken out with the gamepads. All of this stuff that I've talked about is just the motion controls. There is so much more to it. There's parts where the game locks the camera and you can no longer aim on the big screen and you have to use the gamepads. During boss fights where you have to aim and dodge. Then there's the button layout. You have to use the right stick to barrel roll, boost, and brake. Why didn't they just use the buttons for this? It's just baffling to me. It'll barely recognize your input if you flick the stick in a direction twice to dodge. And dodging is vital for keeping you alive in this game. You also have to push the stick perfectly in one direction or it may think you're trying to boost and dodge at the same time, causing your steering to be off. Shooting is also on a trigger now. It feels very unintuitive. You have to constantly mash the trigger with your index finger because you can't just hold it. That gives you a charge shot. So again, this was on a face button before. Why did they do this? On the plus side, your charge shot seems to have a bigger blast radius, and that's kind of fun. But you can no longer throw bombs at enemies that you're locked onto, and I have no idea why. They also introduced a target view, and it's kind of like Z-targeting in Zelda, where you automatically lock onto an enemy. But here's the thing, in Star Fox it only moves the camera. Your ship still behaves as if it was flying forward normally. Your aim is not directed at the enemy, it is incredibly disorienting. But, and I have to give the game credit, it is useful for finding where the next objective is, or spotting an enemy. Well, that sounds useful, right? It sounds like they really solved an issue here, right? They created this problem! Oh my god, voice crack. You used to have a radar that told you exactly where enemies are, and this change is just... it's just absolutely ridiculous. Why not just have a radar like it used to be? This is... oh my god. So yeah, that's it for the R-Wing. You may wonder why after all that I would even bother to try and theorize how this game could be improved. But honestly, all of this is not that complicated to fix. Just remove the motion controls, map the buttons to be like Star Fox 64, add a simple radar, and we're almost done. Yeah, there are some parts in these levels where the motion controls are required, but on a case-by-case basis, I think we can save this. I tried playing Star Fox Zero with just the big screen and without moving or looking at the gamepad at all, and guess what? You can play most of it just fine. And I had a blast. If you ignore all the garbage advice the game gives you about using motion controls, it's actually pretty fun. Not to mention, you can switch to the cockpit view on the big screen with the minus button for more precise aiming, and it's very snappy and quick to switch between the two. It's almost like the motion controls were extremely forced and they had to invent reasons to make them mandatory. Now the R-Wing, yeah, we can fix that. And it's not even that hard with some tweaks to the levels. But the Walker, it might require a bit more thought. You see, you can switch between the R-Wing and the Walker at any time once you've unlocked it, and it's actually really cool. I think most players won't even know about this because the game doesn't exactly encourage you to switch between the R-Wing and the Walker. It's pretty fun to move around with this thing though, like you can slow down a bit, do some platforming, even aiming with motion controls feels a lot better for this thing. Unfortunately, the Walker suffers from some pretty lame tank controls. If you simply made it like Splatoon, where you can move around more freely and jump and dodge with a button instead of the right stick, and add some basic camera movement, then that's it. You're there. That already makes the Walker like 10% more fun. Maybe even 20, maybe 200, who knows? The Walker will be so much more fun that way, and I truly think that the motion controls can stay for this one as an optional thing, because they work just fine. So, what's next? Well, there's the Landmaster. I think it's fine overall. It just suffers from the same button layout problems that the other ones have. But if we fix that, yeah, sure, it works. I do have issues with the level design, but more on that later. Because before we move on to the levels, I would like to talk about the story for a bit. Yeah, it's just Star Fox 64 again, with a handful of slight differences. Very boring, unfortunately, but I do see some solutions for it. First of all, rewrite the script from the ground up. What if there's like a new foe fixing up older creations from Andross, and that's the reason why you have to revisit some planets from 64? The planets at the very least need to be remixed versions of those older planets. Like, one has been turned into a factory, or one is now an intergalactic garbage dump, or one is overgrown by mutated plants. This allows you to recycle a lot of assets that are already there, and you only have to change the colors a little bit, or add a few elements to make it stand out. They've already done this with some levels compared to 64, so I think this could be done. Second of all, make the story more personal. Like Pigma, for example, he could be the initial villain, giving Fox some conflicting feelings about having to bring him in, but actually wanting to blow him to smithereens because Pigma is responsible for the death of Fox's dad. This could create some interesting interaction with Fox's teammates as well. Overall, I think the team interaction can be expanded upon. I actually love this one bit during the Dragon Boss.
What's it screeching about? Can't you translate, Falco?
Slippy, don't make me come over there!
Please give me more of that. One thing that made the characters so fun in 64 was the interaction between them, and we hardly got any good moments of that in Zero. Just give me more of the characters' pasts and their relationships to each other. What do they do in their spare time? Where do they go after missions? What are their hobbies? What are their fears? Where do their personalities really clash? How does Fox feel about being compared to his dad all the time? Does Slippy ever get tired of the rest making fun of him? Does Falco's need for speed ever get the team into major trouble? Nintendo, I'm a writer. I'm just gonna put that out there. I'm just gonna put my card. I'm just putting it here. So that's it for the story. Lots of possibilities there. I could fantasize about it all day, but now we move on to the levels, and I'm bringing out the stickers for this one. Each level will get a salvage, a tweak, or a scrap rating, and I sincerely hope that at the end we'll still have enough left to salvage for a $60 video game. But only one way to find out. Let's just dive in there. We're starting off with Corneria. A simple, linear level, it's just fine. It's actually really cool how there's multiple ways to beat the boss. You can blow it up from the outside, or transform and blow it up from the inside. It's pretty well done. The only problem is these enemies that you have to hit from above. You can use charge shots to kill them, but even then it's a bit of a hassle. There is an easy fix though. Just take the center of the model, rotate it 90 degrees, put the hitboxes on the side, and boom, there you go. You now have an interesting enemy that you can hit from only left or right. There you go, that's it, that's problem solved. Motion controls are no longer needed. Another strong part of this level is this part where you can actually transform into the Walker and activate a floor panel. This opens up a side path and that's really cool. I wish more levels did this, or if there were other panels that give you a speed boost or points or some reason to switch between the R-Wing and the Walker more often during these stages. So, in short, salvage, definitely, but slightly tweak the enemies and do the same for other levels where there are like these tiny enemies that can only be hit from certain angles. Now, there's two variants of this next stage, the Great Fox level. In this one you gotta protect the Great Fox mothership from incoming asteroids, Roombas, and in the alternative one, a giant two-headed bird thing. The bird boss is cool, but once again it takes the camera away from you. Just add a radar and give the player full control again, and I reckon it'll actually be a lot more fun. As for protecting the Great Fox, it's not a good time. You have to constantly multitask between protecting the ship and shooting asteroids. Now this would be a lot more fun if it was on rails or something, like the asteroids level from 64, or keep the focus on protecting the ship, just make that the only thing you have to do. Put some boosters on the front and back of the ship that make it easier to jump between the different sides of the ship, and add some enemies that only the Walker can defeat, so you have to walk over the ship. I definitely see potential here, so overall I would say tweak, for sure. Some work would be needed to make this level fun, but I would say this concept has enough potential to make it work. Then we move on to Sector Alpha. Now there is nothing wrong with this level, it's just a short but sweet on-rails level with a shooting segment and a walker segment. If the walker is adjusted to control better, this level would be a breeze. Definitely salvage. Now Area 3, it's a little more complicated here. The main mission is a dogfight followed by the first gyro wing section. The first of 2. Oh my god, I forgot to talk about the gyro wing. I constantly forget this thing even exists. It's fine. It's just kind of slow and boring. You can also beat the stage with the walker by hacking the robots that way, and that's a lot more fun. If I could, I would cut the gyro wing entirely, but like I said, this is just the first time it's used, so it's kind of like a little tutorial section for that. And it's by no means bad, so let's just keep the level the same way it is. I would say salvage. There's also an extra mission in Area 3 that's pretty simple but quite fun. Just a short, linear chase with uninspired level design. We can keep it, it doesn't do any harm, but, you know, I would definitely, if we could, make the level design nicer, if we could tweak it, but it's not the main priority, I would say. Now, Zone S, this is where things get weird. It is one long, slow stealth mission with the gyro wing, and I gotta say, it's fine? I don't mind it all that much, to be honest. Motion controls aren't really required, it's just a quaint little side mission. However, there is also a bonus mission here, where you pilot the R-Wing and the Walker, turning it into a frantic stealth thrill ride, and I'm a super big fan of this one, it's actually quite awesome. Make this the main mission instead, please, so yeah, with that in mind, that's a hard salvage for me. Just switch the levels around, make the gyro wing one the optional, and boom, there you go. Flipping great level. Right here. Yes, there you go. Okay, right. Next one. We're going at a good pace here. Now we're getting to the best level in the game, Sector Beta. This one is so fun, and it's not even a linear level. Basically, you're in this all-out space battle fighting huge gunships, and to take out the last one, you have to fly through a force field right as it fires a laser, and that shit is awesome. I just wish it was a little more challenging and simultaneously a little easier, because fighting the gunship is too easy, but fighting Wolf and his crew at the end is kind of ridiculously hard if you're trying to get the best ending. Yeah, there's 2 endings for this level. You can either beat Wolf super fast and send him packing, or you take too much time and he'll shoot down Peppy and you have to rescue him on Titania. In conclusion, tweak. Add some tougher enemies when you're fighting the gunships and make beating Wolf a little more forgiving. Now, assuming that we have to rescue Peppy, let's head to Titania. Titania has way too many enemies and things, and that is the main problem. The Landmaster controls fine, but there's simply too much going on, and without motion control, aiming is hell. Just take the enemies that require motion controls to beat and tweak them to require, I don't know, something like good timing instead. Like shots will bounce off of them when they're blue and they flash red or something and then they're vulnerable for a second. Just something like that. Just don't make the shitty aiming your biggest obstacle. Make it the player's own skill. The boss of this stage can be scrapped entirely because this worm thing is a slog. Not to mention, it's one of those instances where the camera control is taken away from you. This fight is just a mess in every sense of the word. You could take the model and animations and make a whole new on-rails boss, but assuming the budget for this re-release is small, we can only change small things. Yeah, I'm actually inclined to say scrap for this level. Only with some major tweaks this one can be fixed, but is it worth it? Maybe just putting the R-Wing in this stage will make it more tolerable, who knows. So I would say scrap or tweak depending on the time and budget. So next up is a flipping amazing level actually. Salvadora is cool as fuck. Basically, you get to control Peppy and take down an entire battleship on your own. You can run on the surface as the Walker and fly under it as the R-Wing to take out turrets and smaller ships, and it friggin' rules! Again, the game doesn't really tell you that you can run on the surface of the ship, so I wish there were collectibles or speed pads or buttons on the surface to better telegraph to the player that switching between the ship modes is a good idea here. Definitely salvage. With the control tweaks to the R-Wing and Walker, this could become a fantastic level. Then onto Sector Gamma, and this one kinda stinks. You have to follow these missiles, but they always move either too fast or too slow compared to your ship, and almost randomly the Great Fox will be attacked, so you have to fly back. And of course the camera is sometimes taken away from you, because they just had to make it even worse. I think with some tweaks this could be turned into a fun on-rails level where you have to plow through fields of enemies to get to the missiles on time, or if the missiles were way bigger and you could just walk on them as the Walker. God, that would be way cooler. I would say scrap or tweak heavily. Probably scrap. Next up, Fishina, and this one is a real stinker too. It's a lot like the all-range levels in 64, where you fight a whole bunch of smaller ships, but it's decent at best or boring at worst. The boss is a mess, it suffers from poor balancing and garbage camera control. The Landmaster can just fly now? It's very weird. It's slower than the R-Wing, but that's both a blessing and a curse for this boss. You'll have a lower risk of crashing into it because you're not as fast, but getting to where you need to go also takes forever. Again, motion controls are pretty much required for this one. I would say scrap, definitely. I gotta say, so far we've been able to salvage quite a bit. And Fortuna is another great level. It seems we're doing pretty well. Fortuna is simply a beautiful planet in Star Fox Zero. Very different from how it looked in 64, but still I love this. It's pretty fun, pretty fast, nothing wrong with this one. Now this is where that big bird thing comes back, and it's a pretty cool fight, but because it's all range mode, you'll often have trouble catching up to this thing or crash into it when it suddenly slows down. This could have been way cooler if it was on rails and you only had to worry about its attacks, not tracking down where the hell it is and how to get to it. I would say either make it on rails or add an additional platform that the bird doesn't land on, so you can stand on it as the walker and fight it from a distance. Maybe there's an on-rails phase and a walker phase, that could be fun. I would say tweak, there's a lot you can do with the existing animations, attacks and models, and the main part where you fly is a blast, so I would say, yeah, this one has to be kept. Now Sector Omega on the other hand, what the hell is happening? Why are we going so fast? Why don't we just fly around all this debris? I'm kind of missing a good story reason for Fox and his pals to fly through all this random space garbage at a blistering pace. It's not bad, but it's not great either. The R-Wing is often in the way of the camera, so you can't see what's up ahead and you have to react really quickly. I would say make the R-Wing transparent or change the camera angle a little bit, just a smidge. At the end of the level, the all-range mode boss is okay, it's just unoriginal. I mean, some folks who played 64 may recognize it. Yeah, it's literally just a boss from 64. It is cool that you can shoot the connecting bits between the ship and the weapons, even though it doesn't do much. And this boss is always facing you, so it's kinda stupid that it's all range mode to begin with. Just make it on rails like the original boss and call it an homage, I guess. Overall, yeah, scrap, sorry. It's an original idea for a level, but the execution falls flat on its ass. And the reused boss, it doesn't add much. It would take brand new level design to make this one interesting enough. Slight nitpick, but no time to chat, we gotta go. Just is not as cool as sorry to chat, but I'm in a hurry. I really wish this game had more original, iconic dialogue, man. Ugh. Now, we're almost at the final boss, but first we go back to Corneria for a bit. It is pretty neat, the level design is a little uninspired though. The music is fantastic actually, but you can barely hear it over the sound effects sometimes. The monkey boss at the end, it's okay, but with some control tweaks to the walker, I think it could actually be a lot more fun than it is now. And yeah, if you make the walker mandatory here, that could actually work a lot better than the R-Wing. Because the boss is standing still, you're constantly flying into the damn thing anyway. Hacking his butt is a very fun way to beat it though. Like, credit where credit is due, they put some thought into this thing. I would say salvage. Maybe tweak the level design to be a bit more interesting, because now it's just Corneria again, but a bit more challenging. Maybe add a missile in the top left or right that follows you the entire way through, and you have to hit it enough times or else it destroys the tower from General Pepper. Oh man, that could create some extra cool suspense actually, I would like that. But yeah, we're at the final level now, and it's actually kinda cool how you get here. There's a playable cutscene at the start where Andross warps you and General Pepper's tower all the way to Venom. I love that they actually talk about Andross's research for a bit here. It's cool to get that extra depth. After that, you explore this tiny planet for a little bit until you encounter Starwolf and his gang. Oh right, the rival fights, I haven't talked about them much yet. They're pretty fun. You can even unlock some extra battles with them, but the fights are extremely similar to how it was in 64. You just fly around, do a somersault when someone's behind you, and then blow them to Kingdom Come. I would love to see more mechanics introduced in these fights. They did already add a few things, like Leon putting down obstacles when you're chasing him. I like that a lot, actually. And then there's some cool moments where you're just past an enemy ship and the game slows down and looks friggin' epic, unironically, which makes me think, wouldn't it be cool if we had some kind of melee attack on the ship or something? Like during these moments where an enemy is about to crash into you, what if you had a split second to activate a force field to damage them instead? Or heck, put a device on the R-Wing that lets you punch whatever's in front of you. Like a big Nintendo Ultra Hand with a boxing glove, why not? Just give me something new. You can also fight on the ground in your walker, but it's kind of disorienting, especially when there's a lot of enemies. Maybe this would work better with the control tweaks that I had in mind for the walker. And if it does, it would be cool if Venom emits some kind of like shockwave that forces everybody to switch to walker mode for a minute or two, just to switch things up. That could be fun. Bummer though that there's no real level here. The original Venom was flipping great. But anyway, after the fight with Starwolf, you get to go inside of Venom, and Fox's dad shows up. This feels kinda lame. In the original game, Fox would get visions of his dad as he escaped the final explosion, but in this one, Fox's dad is just a ghost or something. I mean, Andros can see him too, so that's weird. I don't know, I'm not a fan of this choice at all. And the final boss is a pile of garbage. The forced motion controls make it awkward and disorienting. This boss would need some major tweaks to work. But hey, we need some kind of final boss, so we can't scrap this. I will say, Andros' characterization is great in this. This line especially goes hard.
Opposing me is truly a death sentence. Just ask your father.
Last but not least, there's a couple of cool training missions that could actually just be regular missions on the world map. They're pretty cool, especially the Arwing one where you have to switch between the Arwing and the Walker a lot. So in short, yeah, salvage, definitely. Now, before we evaluate everything so far, just for fun, let's think about what else we could add to this game. What if missions actually gave you something worthwhile? I would love to see Arwing customization with stickers and different colors, and also being able to play as other pilots after completing a level, with some slight differences in their speed and power perhaps. Maybe even getting to play as Starwolf as a 100% bonus. But what I would really love to see is a tiny hub area where you can talk to your team and do missions for them. The character interaction is one of my favorite parts of Star Fox, and I would love to see more of it. Maybe they even give you hints about secret paths. So, let's see what we have. Now, with great visuals and controls that could theoretically be saved with some tweaks, and most levels that can be salvaged and some potential for nice bonus content even, I would say this doesn't feel too crazy. I don't know about you, but this could be pulled off for sure. The only problem is Nintendo. Yeah, it's too bad that they have shown no interest whatsoever in reviving this game, but Platinum Games does seem to be down for it. I wouldn't rule it out, perhaps, who knows? Maybe we'll see Star Fox Zero or Star Fox in general again someday. Until then, you can fill that Star Fox-shaped hole in your R-Wing-shaped heart by watching the cutscenes from Ubisoft's Starlink. I actually really love how they integrated Fox and the others into the story. The game itself is unfortunately extremely Ubisoft, so extremely repetitive, but hey, there's videos of it on YouTube, just saying. I hope you enjoyed this analysis of Star Fox Zero. I'm gonna go back to my corner to play other franchises that are definitely coming back. Just kidding, I'm going to cry! See you next time! Hey, thank you so much for watching. I just wanted to point out real quick, I might do another one of these kinds of videos where I talk about a series and what I would change about it. Possibly Bubsy, who knows, we'll see. And I'm also working on a little cartoon. I'm really excited to show that one. You can follow updates on Twitter if you'd like. Please stick around for that, it's gonna be pretty flipping cool. So, see you next time. Bye bye.